Welcome back to the Procurement Federal Acquisition Supplement and Defence Federal Acquisition Supplements Clauses podcast. I'm Eric Marquette, and today, with Ruby and Paul, we're untangling the path for breaking into federal government contracts, especially with DoD. You'll walk away with some tangible steps and, hopefully, a bit less intimidation about the process. Paul, why don't you kick us off with that crucial first step?
Absolutely, Eric. To start, nobody should try to go it alone. Building a support network is essential. The Department of Defense actually set up the Apex Accelerators, previously called PTACs, to help small businesses compete and succeed in government contracts. I leaned very heavily on them and similar resources, Small Business Development Centers or SBDCs, and SCORE mentoring sessions, when I set up Critical Prism Defense. You can get one-on-one advice, business plan support, or even technical coaching. And honestly, most of those services are either free or pretty close to it.
Yeah, and don't sleep on the value of those local networking sessions. I always say, whatever field you're in, if there's a SCORE event in your city, even if you don't drink coffee, it's worth going, just to eavesdrop on what other founders are struggling with. And like Eric, you always tease me about this, but half my questions in the early days weren't even about contracts. They were just, how do you not run out of money by Friday?
Those are probably the right questions, Ruby. But after you've built a support system, you really have to learn the rules of the game, reading the FAR and DFARs, right? For anyone listening who's brand new, those are the Federal Acquisition Regulation and the Defence Supplement, and understanding them is, well, not optional. They spell out everything. Oversight, audit rules, even the weird little gotchas about how you report or manage subcontracts. Paul, you've talked before about the hazards of missing something here.
Yeah, missing a clause or misunderstanding how it flows down can put your contract and reputation at risk. As we discussed in previous episodes, especially when we got into compliance and cybersecurity, FAR and DFARs are the foundation for both civilian and DoD contracting. For example, registering in SAM.gov isn't just a suggestion. You can't submit a federal bid without being in the system for award management. And honestly, start that process early. It can take longer than you'd expect, especially if your paperwork isn't spot on.
That's such a good point. And before you even think about writing a proposal, you want to decide who you want to serve. Do you want to work DoD, civilian agencies, or something even more niche? Paul, didn't you say once that you launched Critical Prism Defense by reaching out to DoD bases before you ever wrote a single bid?
That's right. I focused on targeted outreach, connecting with the small business professionals at local DoD offices, asking about their pain points, getting a feel for what actual requirements they might have coming out in the next year or so. That kind of early engagement doesn't guarantee a win, but it's a huge leg up for understanding real federal buyer priorities versus just guessing from your data.
So, if you're listening and feeling overwhelmed, just remember, build your network, get registered, and study those rules. FAR and DFARs aren't the enemy. They're your playbook. And if you're not sure where to start, go to an Apex Accelerator or your local SBDC or SCORE chapter. They'll get you moving. Let's move from setup to, I suppose, showing up, actually marketing yourself. When it comes to the Department of Defense, there are some, let's say, unique buyer expectations. Ruby, you had a memorable first meeting where you pitched your creative services. Care to relive that?
Oh, mate, it was a crash course in humility. I went in all jazz hands, right? Blew past the program manager with this pitch full of adjectives like revolutionary brand engagement and transformative storytelling. And she looks at me super deadpan, says, "Can you help us reduce training rollout time by 15%? I realized pretty quick, those folks want facts, numbers, and how you impact mission or money. Leave the buzzwords at home, yeah?
It's true. DoD buyers, whether contracting officers or program managers, are looking for information, not just enthusiasm. They want to understand specifically how your product or service solves their problem or supports their mission. And you've got to translate your past performance. Don't leave them to figure it out from a pile of marketing slides. It's your job to make those connections clear.
And having a strong capability statement is, it's non-negotiable. Keep it crisp, one page, and always include your cage code. And, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, you really want to tailor each more detailed presentation based on who you're talking to, right?
Exactly, Eric. No canned decks. Research the agency or base, know their mission, and address their challenges directly. Also, if you're hunting for actual contract opportunities, don't overlook the tools. SAM.gov is where you'll find new solicitations, and usaspending.gov is fantastic for researching historical awards. You can sort by NAICS code, keywords, even see which agencies buy what you sell and how often.
Yeah, and don't get stuck trying to fit every possible NAICS code. Find your niche and own it. Otherwise, you sound like you'll wash their car and also, launch a satellite. Less is more. Do the homework, check those databases, and show up to small business professional meetings with real requirements, or at least meaningful, specific questions.
DoD has over 30,000 acquisition staff, so the opportunities are truly out there. But like you both said, it's not about being everything to everyone. You've got to position yourself as the answer for that particular program manager or contracting officer's actual challenge, not just a generic vendor hoping for a shot. Paul, any favourite ways to spot good contract leads on sam.gov or usaspending.gov?
Sure thing. Besides using NAICS to filter, I routinely check the place of performance, sometimes even geographically, if you want local work. I also look for those set-aside opportunities, especially ones for small businesses. The simplified acquisitions, those under $250,000, can be a solid way to get started. They're more manageable and often set aside specifically for small folks trying to get a foothold.
And don't be afraid to ask for help. You can reach out to procurement center representatives. They're there to make sure small businesses get their fair chance and will often share practical tips and feedback about upcoming cycles. I wish I'd done it earlier, honestly.
It all leads up to that first bid or partnership, which, to be honest, might be the best way in if you're new to federal contracting. You don't have to go it alone. Teaming or subcontracting is often the bridge. Paul, what do you tell folks considering their first teaming agreement?
I tell them to consider all the angles. Teaming can mean working as a subcontractor for an established prime, or forming a JV or partnership to chase bigger awards together. Many first-timers do best starting as a subcontractor, especially with those simplified acquisitions under $250,000, since agencies set a lot of those aside for small businesses. And remember, flow down requirements, what we've talked about in previous episodes, apply here too. Know what mandatory FAR or DFARS clauses you're signing up for, because a mistake at this level can cascade to everyone on the team.
Also, don't panic if your first bid gets rejected. It's a cliche for a reason, but resilience really is key. Most small businesses spend, hundreds of hours on proposals, and a lot end up going nowhere. My advice? After every no, try to get feedback, even if it stings. And definitely check in with your small business professional or reach out to a procurement center rep. They'll often debrief you or can point out where you lost points.
That's a good one. In fact, there was this small startup I interviewed a year or so ago. They won their first DoD job by partnering with a major defense prime. The startup brought the innovative tech, but the prime had the process, the past performance, and compliance infrastructure. By teaming up, they could bid bigger and faster, and honestly, skipping a lot of the pain of learning every rule from scratch. That's a path well worth considering.
And performing on the contract is really just the beginning. The government expects stellar execution, detailed record keeping, and ongoing compliance, which again is what we keep coming back to in this series. Whether you're prime or sub, keep lines of communication open, stay audit ready, and ask for help early if something drifts off course.
Yeah, you can't wing it or try to negotiate away mandatory clauses. Primes will make it clear. If you can't do the flow downs or you're not ready for that level of compliance, you shouldn't take the subcontract. Better to learn now than lose a contract later.
All right, we'll leave it there for today. If you're looking to break into federal contracting, you know It's not magic. It's about persistence, relationships, and knowing your requirements. Thanks, Ruby and Paul, for sharing the practical stuff. Next week, we'll be diving deeper into the trickier bits of flowdowns and negotiation tactics. Cheers, everyone, and goodbye.
Catch you soon, folks. And remember, you don't have to get it perfect. You just have to get started.
Appreciate the insights, Eric and Ruby. Looking forward to the next discussion. Take care, everyone.